You know, it dawned on me that most crypto investors are going to get absolutely wrecked by doing just one thing. And one thing that we are all very, very guilty of, myself included, especially over the last few years, especially this cycle. I've been extremely, extremely guilty of doing this one thing that I think is actually going to be one of the worst things you can do. And we're going to talk about that one thing on this video, because all over the timeline is glorious, euphoric FOMO about the extreme gains coming in Q4, the year after the halving, when all of the magic has always happened, when the unicorns, the leprechauns, the ligers. Are ligers fake? Are they real? Are those mythical creatures, or do they exist? I think they exist. So not the ligers. All the mythical stuff. Those ones. They're all gonna appear under your bed with buckets of gold, and you're gonna end up in your dream house in a hot tub, soaking it up with your soulmate, only if only crypto goes to the moon. Now, of course, I wouldn't be doing these crypto videos. I wouldn't be here wasting all my time and effort in crypto. I would have sold and moved on a long time ago if I didn't think that we were heading towards something massive. But I'm very, very worried about this one thing. What is that one thing, you might ask? Well, smash that like button, young man, and I will tell you right now. All right, time to zone in, time to get really serious. The one thing that I've done, probably the worst thing I've done, and the one thing that I think people will do here over the next couple of months is get way, way too specific about the time period that they expect for crypto to behave bullishly in. Let's go ahead and say that again one time to be much more clear. Expecting that if crypto does or doesn't pump within a certain few weeks in a new year, in a new cycle, under a new government, under a new debt regime, expecting crypto to behave exactly the way it did in 2017 and 2021 is probably going to be the path to pain. In fact, it has been the path to pain throughout this whole cycle. I mean, here we are looking at Bitcoin dominance. When Bitcoin dominance falls, it usually means altcoins rally. We expected during this initial fall back, what was this, in November of 2024, we expected this to be the big drop off for Bitcoin dominance. We thought it was over. We thought this actually back in the beginning of 2024 might be the big drop in Bitcoin dominance, this red candle here. But no, onwards and upwards. The altcoins have not gotten their golden extreme alt season, the type of juicy, delicious freedom gains that we've all been waiting years for. I mean, some people scored big in memes. I definitely had a couple of massive meme runners that went from 5 figures up to 7 figures and beyond. That was crazy stuff, but I didn't play those perfectly because I thought that we were rotating into a full-blown alt season where they may become 8 and 9 figure trade. Who knows? Maybe I would buy a spaceship with my Pepes and my Mogs. I have no idea what was going to happen. It was getting pretty kooky there for a second. And not to say that I don't think memes will run again or the Pepes and the Mogs won't run again. I actually am still holding those coins, but let me tell you what I think is most likely. The one thing we know for sure as we look at this journey, which can be simplified in a few red and green bars, but really, I mean, we've all gone through so much emotion throughout these last several bars. I mean, since the bottom in 2022, this has been one of the craziest, most hallucinogenic, most insane experiences, euphoric, depressive, and everything in between, almost ad nauseum, almost too many times. But we thought here in early 2024, when we were breaking this prior all-time high, or at least challenging it, we thought that was it. We thought for sure, seen this movie before, we know once we break that all-time high, it is moon time. It is the moon. It is where we're going. And then we didn't get that, right? Instead, we got, what was this, 7 months of chop or something disgusting, some absolutely insane and probably illegal amount of chop. This was some Chinese water torture level of chop, the kind of blue ball edging that they've made illegal even on the most shady internet sites. This was wrong. I feel like this was wrong, and I still think we need to be paid back for it. But then we did get our payback because we got the Trump pump, right? We went from 50K up to 110K, and that was pretty epic. But then we got, tariff palooza, and everything's going to end again, and actually Trump's crazy, and then, oh, no, he's actually not crazy. He's going to pump the shit out of the economy. All the while, we've been doing this thing over and over again, myself included, because partly it's comforting and partly it's because if we don't have these moments to rally around, you start to wonder and worry, well, what will happen to crypto? What will happen to this extremely exciting, euphoric altcoin space if we don't all believe that we're going to get these magic pumps coming? And the truth is that I do think it's coming. And I do think it's coming very soon, especially relative to the last few years. But I do think that there's a potential that what we see in Q4 isn't the exact same thing that we've seen over the last few cycles. I think it's potential that we go much higher. And I think it's significantly potential that we could see something like a traditionally bullish October, which, by the way, if you don't know, October is the most bullish month. There's only one October in history that has ceased to be fully bullish, right? This is October of 2018, which was a big bear market, right? This was one of the worst bear markets. Even in the bear markets, Bitcoin has been bullish every time except one. And so what we can see here is that not only is October bullish, but the year after the halving, which is where we're at, 2017, 47% pump, 2021, a 39, pretty much a 40% pump. And then in 2023, a masterful 28% pump. So they are very bullish, these October months. But I want to caution that what we could end up seeing here is not just this crescendo like we've seen so many years past. In my opinion, we could see a massively bullish Q4, and we could see things continue to go up here, maybe to 140, 150, and then we get into early 2026. And I want to be very clear. Maybe, just maybe, we see a bit of a bear market and we come down. We maybe even come down and try to test this 100K. I don't know why it does this when I'm on the weekly or on the monthly. The drawings get all messed up. They get all messed up. But anyway, let's get back down to the dirty daily. So is it possible that we see an amazing bull run by Bitcoin into the year end? We see Bitcoin come down. We see altcoins finally break this high, right? They break this prior high that we've been trying to break through for this entire cycle. We have not broken out on others, right? This valuation of, what is this, 500 billion has not been surpassed yet. And so is it possible that we finally break out here and then we all think, okay, this is it. We're all about to buy a spaceship. We're all about to get communal spaceships, individual space pods. We're going to be on, a space yachting venture or something. I don't know, something expensive. The point is that we're going to have a lot of money, right? We're all going to have, khakis, whatever you want to spend your money on. And then a lot of people say, and then it's probably a bad line, but then we come back down here, back into this zone. Is it possible that this could happen and we could still end up having an amazing year in 2026? And I think that this is the possibility that I have in the back of my mind, because the thing that we've become too guilty of in this industry, myself included, I take full responsibility and I shoulder the blame onto every single person on crypto Twitter, on crypto YouTube, on crypto TikTok, and crypto WeChat. If there are other apps where they discuss crypto and they do this, then they're to blame as well. But I want to be very clear here. The thing that they're doing, the thing that we've been doing, is we've been expressing that if crypto doesn't perform in a certain way in a very small time period, then it invalidates the whole thesis. Like everything we've thought about crypto now gets thrown out the window. There is no alt season. There's no reason to be excited about anything. And that's kind of this hot, cold nature that we've established in crypto. And the thing about it is that the more we've seen out of this cycle, the more it's very clear that crypto has become more or less a part of the mainstream financial system. And this happened, of course, with the ETF listing, where now Bitcoin is getting inflows from Wall Street. And all those flows are from a totally different type of buyer, totally different profile of holder. And it's thrown off the way we perceive the industry. But it doesn't mean without this euphoric alt season that we haven't had yet, I want to stress yet, that things have fundamentally changed. In fact, I think they've gotten a lot better. Now, here's why I think this. So right now, the thing that I'm worried about is that if we don't get this euphoric alt season in Q4, people will just exit the market, because 2026 will probably start off a little weak, and then we'll get to transition into what I think of as the most likely scenario to pump crypto. So apparently this guy, Jesse, who I don't really know a lot about. Do I follow this person? No, I don't follow this person. They follow me though. Shout out to them. As they've been saying since the start of 2025, this will be crypto's first 5-year cycle. The cycle will extend well into 2026 due to things like the SLR adjustments, the credit cycle, and Bessent's mandate from heaven to run the economy hot. Now, this is the part that I think people aren't paying enough attention to, because we have all this talk that we were juggling, especially at the start of Trump's term, about slashing the national deficit, about controlling costs, waste, fraud, and abuse. All of these things that were being thrown around that were really political footballs to attack the Democrats have now actually kind of sputtered out. And what we realize is under all this, Trump wants rates at zero. He wants an easy to access housing market, and he wants the economy stimulated so that it feels prosperous right here, right now, so that everybody thinks of him as the most prosperous, amazing president in history. Now, last year, the cycles lined up pretty perfectly with year-over-year liquidity growth. That's true. Obviously, there's been some eerie similarities between 2013, 2017, 2021. I mean, it does not take a rocket scientist, okay? It does not take a rocket science degree here for you to go ahead and say, okay, here is a top in November of 2021. Here is a top in December of 2017. Oh my God, this chart doesn't even go back. This chart does not even go back to 2013. Can we get Bitstamp up here? Bitstamp won't let us down. Never gonna let you up. All right, and we have a top right here in November of 2013. So will we have a top somewhere in here in Q4 of 2025? That would match the pattern, right? But the other thing that would be, to me, missing from the pattern is that you have here parabola, And what you have here for me is more of a line. This is the problem, is you had, kind of like this and then up in all of the prior cycles. And that's also what caused these huge crashes, right? Because you had almost up only for quite a ways, and then you had down only for a while. But in this case, especially on the log chart, when you go to a logarithmic chart for Bitcoin, what you'll see is that that straight line that I had painted is actually even curved now, because it is really not that much of a parabola. In fact, you can just draw a straight line up. Right? Obviously, log charts are inherently exponential, so that may not be, accurate. And even on the log chart, you can see there was a parabola here in 2021. There's a big parabola. So in many ways, you could say that this market cycle just doesn't really look anything like the ones in the past. You had this huge parabola, and here you just have a linear growth. And that's where things get a bit funky, right? Is if we still haven't seen the parabola, does that mean that we get a huge bear market and an end to the cycle without the parabola? To me, why would you have a magnificent crash and everything needs to come apart with the wheels flying in every direction if you didn't have the opposite? If you didn't have this euphoric growth, why would we see this, devastating, disastrous, calamitous breakdown where everyone's selling their blood and semen and making hair wigs, or I don't know what other stuff you can sell from your body. Maybe there's some kind of repurposing use of your dandruff. I don't know. I'm not an expert in this stuff. If you're an expert and you know how to sell your biological resources, please leave a comment in the comment section below, just for science. But I really see this as a low likelihood. I just cannot see the market cycle ending without some kind of euphoric push. Now, of course, if we do see a euphoric push, even up from here, just straight up, maybe to 150s or something like that, that would start to be like, okay, that kind of was parabolic right there. If you go all the way from here to, the 250 range or the 200K plus range, you'd say, okay, even on the log chart, that's going to be kind of parabolic, right? You'd say, okay, let's go to logarithmic. Let's go ahead and reset. And you'd say, okay, yeah, that still looks parabolic, right? We saw a ramp. We saw a bit of a ramp. But I just don't know how I feel about expecting the end of the bull run without what I feel like is the key part of the bull run, which is an explosive rise in Bitcoin and a collapse of Bitcoin dominance, which we just haven't seen yet. I mean, look at Bitcoin dominance. It keeps flirting with breaking down and then builds back up. That's not how it goes. That's not how this Bitcoin dominance stuff works. I mean, look at what happened in 2021. Like, this was just ridiculous what happened in 2021. Look what happened in 2017. This was just ridiculous, right? And so how are these the same as this? They are not the same. We haven't seen it yet, right? And so maybe it'll be smaller to a degree. Maybe you could see that there was a descending trend line in Bitcoin dominance's peaks, but then there wasn't really a descending trend line in the bottoming area. So why would there be this extreme high or low in Bitcoin dominance? It just doesn't make sense to me. What it does look a little bit like this area is it looks a little bit like this area to me. That's where it looks like. So if we were going to say, just based on rough naked eye pattern matching, maybe this is very similar to the end of 2020, September 2020, right? That would match this 5-year cycle thesis that, hey, we're going to slam rates to zero. We're going to redo the debt. The ISM will finally break above 50, right? The ISM is that key reading. The ISM is pretty much the golden ticket into understanding how much people have confidence in the markets. And right now, people have still under 50% confidence in the ISM, or a rating of under 50 in the ISM, which is not equated to an expansion. It's considered in abnormality. In fact, it's been under 50 the longest time in history. So we just had an ISM rating of 49.1 today. So we're very close to hitting that 50. We're still not there yet. And so if this is a similar period to what we saw back in 2020, maybe this was just the preliminary, the foreplay breakdown, and then we get a rocket back of Bitcoin dominance and then the real collapse. That would be the fun one, right? If this is really the 2020 comparison and we're about to see Bitcoin dominance rocket up, get back to that 66%, then everybody says, oh, we're about to go for 99% Bitcoin dominance. We're breaking out. And then it collapses. That would actually make a lot of sense because it would do two things. One, it would throw everyone off time-wise, and it would be that variable that makes it so that if you understood the new sort of way things are working, you'd crush it. But the vast majority of canonical crypto degens out there just following the basic astrological cycle of the 4-year cycle would get completely mollywomped, thumped, and dragged out. And they would get dragged out because they would absolutely capitulate into Bitcoin here at the top and miss that this was actually the best time to be holding altcoins in history. Either way, it doesn't really change a lot of my personal outlooks. Now, I'm sure you guys have seen these explosive tokens like the Aster token. Who here has seen the Aster token? Raise your hand. Well, if you see a token go from, what is this, 6 cents? I think it was actually about 10 cents when CZ tweeted it, and it went all the way up to $2.45. Well, at a certain point, as soon as we start breaking this structure, right? As soon as we start breaking the 4-hour structure, seeing, hey, you see a little bit of this action. All right, we're coming down here. Oh, we're actually testing below here. Oh, we're going to keep breaking below. No, maybe you're bullish on Aster. Maybe you want a long Aster. Maybe you actually think, okay, when a coin goes this far, this high, it's got to cool off. And so you take a short here close to the top saying this can't possibly go on. Well, you can't short and long unless you have an amazing derivatives exchange. And as you know, we are big fans of our besties over at Blowfin, who have a massive, massive opportunity for you guys if you want to sign up. As you know, in Q4, I'm going to be giving out 100,000 super tokens worth about $60,000 to the people who are trading on my link. Check it out in the description below. It is free to sign up. You can go long, you can go short, you can use leverage. It is whatever you want to do. And if you leave your Blowfin UID in the comment section below, we will pick a few of you to give out $1,000 in super tokens. So make sure to take advantage. Blowfin is a great exchange, huge fan of their platform, and I encourage you to check them out if you know how to trade. As always, if you don't know how to trade this way, you'll need to learn the ropes. But let's be honest, most of you watching this channel have been here for years and years. You are veterans, you know what you're doing. I trust you all to ride without the training wheels. Make sure to check out Blowfin and shout out to them for partnering with the channel. What I will be doing over the next few weeks is covering ways that if I were to go back in history and say, okay, if I had a perfect crystal ball, here's how I would have played 2024 and 2025 as a trader, speculator in crypto. Here's the right way to kind of segregate the bags. We'll have a video on that as well, because the great irony of this moment is despite the lack of euphoria in altcoins, things have never actually been better for crypto altcoins. Let me say that again. Things have never been better for crypto altcoins. Look at this, okay? We have the SEC looking to allow stocks to trade like crypto. And we have Citadel. Yes, the Citadel. The ones, from Dumb Money, the ones that actually stopped Robinhood from having the buy button on GME stock. The guy, Ken Griffin, with the 15 house plot of land in Miami Beach. That is Citadel's leader, Ken Griffin, right? Is it Griffin or Griffith? Yeah, this guy. I've never seen eyes like this. These are just some crazy eyes. These are some crazy eyes. It's like the blue-eyed meme, like the I'm looking through you blue-eyed meme. Anyway, the point of this isn't to on Ken Griffin. Anyway, he's very rich. Congrats to him. What we see is not a 1, but a 6-page book of letter that the Citadel securities team has written to the SEC saying, don't do this. Do not allow for crypto to trade our stocks. And why? Because their business, their fundamental money-making business of being market makers is fundamentally threatened by this. And this is where you see there is a huge advancement happening. And it's not happening the way that we really wanted, right? We wanted to buy a meme coin. We wanted to buy one altcoin. We wanted to be so rich that none of this mattered to us. But you're forced to level up and understand the game at a deeper level in market cycles like this, because the game is evolving. But it's not evolving in a way people actually dislike. They should be a fan of this. Let me explain, right? So in a world where you have this happening, where you have treasury companies coming on, bolstering the underlying fundamentals and creating a link between altcoins and the publicly traded markets. And actually, treasury co's are creating kind of the best link. Well, what you're seeing is actually a maturation of the space where a small subset of assets are graduating to a more significant status, which is what we really wanted in crypto all the time. We all wanted to come in and buy one magic altcoin, hodl it forever, and then get giga rich. What actually ended up happening in the prior cycles was that we bought these altcoins, they exploded higher than they ever should have, made us all very, very happy, some of us very wealthy, and then they went to zero because they actually shouldn't have been there. Now we have the inverse, where the fundamentals are getting very strong, and there's actually a small subset of assets that have proven that not only are they sustainable, not only do they have hardcore holder bases, not only are they compliant with the new regulations and they have the leadership in place to bring them onto the stock market and get them traction on the stock market from traditional investors, but we also have the knowledge that these aren't flash in the pan pumps, and these are going to be some of the industry leaders for years and years to come. We can actually bet on these, buy them, close our eyes, log off, and come back probably in 5 years, and they'll be much, much higher. Unlike most of the altcoins from 2021, which were all promise and pump, but no substance, now we have the inverse, where it's a ton of substance, it's a ton of fundamental growth, and the pump hasn't come to quite offset that yet, right? We haven't seen the pump just really justify all of this fundamental growth, which should be the thing we're all celebrating. We should be looking at influencers, YouTubers, launching projects like Black Hole, which are doing 1.6 billion last week, over $2 billion in volume, paying out millions in fees, and then the bribes on top of this paid out over $2 million just now in this recent epoch here on Black Hole. And this is a token that's trading for not that much money in the market. In fact, I've been doing this voting guide where I showed what a $10,000 buy of Black, and just voting and collecting the rewards from using that $10,000 and reinvesting them into Black tokens to keep growing and compounding that stake. Well, my recent stake, I haven't checked it yet. I will add this into the video just so you can see this, but it is insane how much I've been able to grow that just by compounding what's going on in Black Hole. No games. This is real revenue from a real on-chain business, a decentralized exchange. Okay, so here is how crazy this is. And I've been trying to explain this, but I think honestly, this might be one of the most important pieces to understand about crypto in 2025, which is that you can actually own a piece of a network, a real network doing real economic activity. For example, the $10,000 buy. Now I think this is week 6 of compounding everything I earned from that 10,000 back into Black, and then adding it to the voting power and then voting on it again. Here's what happened. So the initial claim was $403, okay? If you wanna know what 10,000 divided by $403 is, it's 24.81, right? That is the math, which means that it would take you under 25 weeks, just call it 25 weeks, to make back your $10,000 at this reward rate. Now, of course, we've compounded a few weeks to get here, but that means, right, if you take this number, right, and you divide 52 by this number, what you see is it gives you a multiplier of you are 2xing your money each year in actual yield. So of course, this is all speculative. This is not a T-bill. This is still high risk speculation. But what this is saying is that my $10,000 with the $403 per week, if that is consistent, again, it goes up, it goes down, it could go down a lot, it could go up a lot. Understand that that's part of the game here. That $10,000 is currently, as of this week, producing $20,000 per year, actually a little bit more, right? And if we actually multiply that by 10,000, there we go. $20,956 per year based on the yield from this week from that $10,000 wallet. Now, as you can see here, here's a screenshot of after I sold everything. So you're saying, okay, well, what if it just shows that what is the actual real yield? Well, after selling everything back into the Black token from all the different coins that I was actually able to get back in the form of this week's voting rewards, you see that there was 1,280 and change Black, which is about 401 and 8 cents. You can see here in the wallet, the actual value that is being shown within the Rabby wallet of the value of this wallet, which started with $10,000 on the exact button in USDC, is now being valued over $18,000. Now, of course, this factors in the added voting power you get from burning your Black. You get a 10% bump. And this factors in what you'll see here, which is the escape velocity. As you know, there was something called escape velocity, which was the bonus season run by Black Hole that gives you essentially bonus V-Black. If you burn your Black, the Black Hole team will give you more V-Black. And there's actually a dashboard which you can use to track this to make it simpler. The first season of escape velocity actually already completed, and that was only 6 million V-Black. As you can see here, this one is for 10 million V-Black, which is not quite 2x, but it's significantly higher. And that is giving, currently the reward rate is 144%. So as more people burn, this brings down the effective reward rate, and this caps out at 10% of the pool. So you can only get 1 million V-Black. If you're a super whale and you burn 1 million Black, you can sort of max out at getting 1/10 of this. So anyway, you'll be capped at 10% of the pool. That's probably not relevant to most of you. But anyway, I expect to see this come down into that 30 to 50% range. And there's 8 days left. So usually the big whales will wait till the final moments to start burning the Black, because then they know more accurately how good the yield on this escape velocity season is going to be. So all the Black that I'm burning here, like as soon as I can here in about an hour, I'm going to burn all this Black and add it to my voting power, compounding it once more. All of that Black is going to be matched with this escape velocity reward of 10 million V-Black. In all honesty, I want to be burning more Black. I want to be adding to my own ownership of the yield coming out of this exchange. However, I'm actually just trying my best to let the community maximize their opportunities here, but it's really tempting. We've been holding back our team and insiders from actually buying and collecting more of the yield because we want it to be more decentralized. But at a certain point, we'll just start buying it ourselves because, in my opinion, this is one of the most fun things I've ever had, which is weekly crypto yield. It's a whole new category of product. It's something you should have on your radar. Anyway, that's it for sharing the yield portion. But as good as I thought this might go, this whole let me just buy 10K worth of black, vote on it and see how this goes over time, this is way crazier than I thought it would go. The compounding effects are insane. And I just think more people should know about this. Isn't this what we always wanted? Was an industry where you could own a piece of a network that was having a real economic impact and that you would get to participate directly without any kind of intermediaries in the most valuable parts of that protocol, of that piece of technology. That is the holy grail, the promise of crypto. And it's been fully given the green light by the SEC. And we're finally gonna get the market structure clarity bill in Congress within the next few months. These are the things that are actually making it so that this inverse is true, right? And that's why I do think that what Jesse's saying is right. Right now, we're looking at this weird thing where we could have a 5-year cycle. But I'm also less concerned with that because we finally have a chance where you can buy into revenue generating protocols where even today, the revenue that you can buy into is monstrous. The amount of passive income you can create is monstrous. And the amount of upside you can create by playing this game smart is monstrous. And then there's obviously going to be times where the speculation runs into overdrive. And that'll probably be related more to, the debt cycle, the low interest rates, the stimulus from Fed and others. But I do find this very interesting. I think a lot of people are going to get absolutely wrecked because they're too hyper-focused on the narrow, which is what would happen to people if in Q4 in December, if you see Bitcoin dominance kind of chug its way up to new highs. What would that do to you? Would you give up? Would you say, you know what, my alts are wrecked. I don't care that Bitcoin's at 200K. I'm still not richer for it. I didn't have enough Bitcoin. I hate this game. I'm logging off. Is that going to be what you do? Because I think that might be missing the forest through the trees. I think this is still coming. I just can't tell you for sure it's Q4. I think it might be in Q4, but as we've gotten closer, it still feels like there's more left in the story before we get this euphoric blow off. We just haven't had the success yet that we need to see this all end. Maybe it's the case. Like I said, I'm emotionally prepared. If ETH just decides, okay, you know what? And by the way, ETH following our LARP line's pretty good here. It came down and retested this 4K support, and now it's kind of bouncing up. But if ETH makes it up here and it's only in the $5,000 range or whatever, I'm not selling my ETH personally. It's just not enough for me, right? Obviously, I may take some off the table if I think a massive bear market is coming. But I do think that in a real bull market, in a real alt season, ETH is at least a $10,000 coin. That's the real market, not this like conservative, oh, we're going to go to 6K and then come down to 3K for another 10 years. Like, we didn't get into crypto for that. I didn't get into crypto for that. At this point, we're just mainstream investors. We might as well just be, going into NVIDIA and stuff like that, right? So to be clear here, I do think that there's a potential for Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance in specific to actually make a move up towards the end of the year, much like it did in September 2020. Because in the end, if this is a 5-year cycle, then what happens after that is a ridiculous collapse of Bitcoin dominance, where it comes probably, in my opinion, under these prior supports, because you're going to have stock market money plowing into things like Solana, into things like Ethereum, into things hopefully like other amazing coins that end up getting listed through digital asset treasuries and through ETFs and all the cool stuff that can happen. And that, my friends, is the single explosive .com bubbly type altcoin moment that I would say, okay, maybe we have taken all of these fundamentals and this new layer of finance, and now we're overpricing it because it's finally gotten the regulatory green light. It's finally in the mainstream, and now we're getting real overvaluation. But that would be like $10 to $20 trillion as an industry, not here sitting around at a measly, $3 trillion industry. To me, this is not euphoric overvaluation. However, I do think most people will get wrecked if they are too focused on exactly the month this happens. And if you're watching this channel, I'm guessing a lot of you have been here since 2021. This is just something you need to be aware of. This could take longer. And in fact, if we do get alt season in mid 2026, I think that that's what takes ETH to 10 to 20K. I think that's what takes Solana closer to $1,000. I think that's what takes these astronomical price targets for meme coins, for gaming coins, for DEXs, for DeFi, and sends them up to astronomically, significantly higher highs. So that's the thing that I wanted to caution everybody against, is getting too focused on the time preference. Low time preference used to be a huge part of Bitcoin and crypto investing, which is just buy it, hold it, and wait, and don't worry about exactly when it happens, but just wait for it. And we need to bring that back here in the altcoin space, because it is going to happen. I believe that, but exactly when, we will find out. And here I found another chart of the ISM. As you can see, the ISM is coming back up, but it's predicted to peak here in sort of late 2026, right? If this sort of bottoming pattern is extended, that could mean that the Bitcoin and crypto markets pump well into 2026. If we look at ISM overlaid over the last few market cycles, what you can see here is that the ISM was almost 60, like 57 or so, back when we had the peak in 2013. The ISM was well over 60 in 2017 when we actually had our peak here. And the ISM actually perfectly timed with the first peak in 2021 with a reading of 64 or 65. One of the highest ISM readings, perfectly timed with the May peak of crypto altcoins, specifically things like Doge. So the ISM is a big deal, and it has a huge correlation with crypto and especially with altcoins, because it shows the risk on behavior in the market. So I think there's a lot of reasons why we will see this cycle extend. I do think that we will see a reason to sell some tokens here in Q4. So I'm ready, I'm excited, I'm bullish, but I also want you to know that there could be a scenario in which we get a little mini bear in the beginning of 2026, and then the new Fed chair, the lower rates, the debt cycle kind of kicking into full swing, and the ISM finally jumping out of that, substandard sub 50 zone into the mid 50s, into the high 50s, and even the 60s. That would be where we see the magic happen typically. And we're just not there yet. We're not there as a macro global economy. So I think in this case, it's a question of not obsessing over what happened in the past, but letting the wheels turn a little bit, letting the gears turn a little bit, and getting to the good part. If you guys enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Smash that like button. And most of all, check out this video, as I know for sure you're going to love it. See you soon.